When you get a chance, want to screen share with me? Cool. Take your time. Is that right? Are you hitting them hard? There's no such thing as too much wub, right?
Oh, there we go. I should probably unmute my own mic. You could hear it Kato, but not me for a second there.
I mean, do they need anything more than to be able to hear my voice?
Honestly, no. You pretty much carry the show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me.
Oh, I never did put a picture on your slide. I can do that really quick.
That's okay.
No. We got this.
You're right. I'm long-winded. Do you want people to have something to look at so they don't tune away? Tune out, rather.
This is gonna look really official here. Can you see me just drawing this?
I can't see it.
There we go.
Oh, wait. That's some next level shit right there.
Do you want the arrow a different color? Let's make it... Actually, I can make it the same color as these.
I think that works. Scuff stream, they're seeing right there here in the behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. Pay no attention to the end of this. I didn't make it, you know, literally while I was supposed to be live.
Nah, not at all.
Not at all.
Zero scuff in this stream. Who does Bilgewater stats?
Siren.
Oh, are we flaming him?
He's memeing himself, which I appreciate.
Oh, they are up. Okay.
I wonder...
Gotcha, so it's a continuation of their own memes.
Okay, I wonder...
Wait, that's disgusting. You have Immortals as your background?
It fluctuates every couple of minutes. The
Oh
Immortals
my
will
God.
be pretty old.
Rip Immortals.
Rip Immortals. I wonder if this will even, like, finish during the stream. I guess we'll find out.
Immortals best team NA. I mean, they couldn't even make it back into the league, so how good could they have really been?
Rip Team Coast. The boys.
Isn't Team Coast where Zion Spartan started?
Even his teachers call him Zion Spartan.
Yeah, whatever happened to Zion Spartan? I miss him.
My favorite, like, old school team was Team Marn, so...
Marn. I don't know Marn.
You don't know Marn? They were in the very
No.
first season of LCS, and I'm trying to think, like, who even was on that team that's relevant right now? It's Mega Zero plays for Case Western, and then one of them's on the, like, is the Observer now for LCS.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Observer, you mean like a caster or like actually the observer?
No, the actual observer. Yeah, he's like the like technical producer, like
Oh,
observer for the LCS streams now.
that's cool.
Yeah, GGU. That's your like fun fact for NALCS finalists is that there've only been uh, a total of 5 teams that have made the NALCS final. Is that right?
Yeah,
Five now
like
with Liquid, or is it 6 now with Liquid?
wasn't it like a year and a half ago there had only ever been three?
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah, and then Liquid and CLG are relatively new.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's an intro video. Anyway, you can make your money in like league trivia. Not that anybody would bet money on it. Uh, but yeah, you're like NALCS finalists or like the traditional. It's like Cloud9 Team Solo Mid, CLG Team Liquid, and then Good Game University. There it is. GGU.
Yeah, that's the one that everyone will forget about because didn't they disband immediately after that or something?
They got rebranded to Coast the split after that, and then they fell apart because they didn't really have like players.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the Called podcast for week 4. We're a little bit late because I'm really tired and I didn't finish the slides on time. So yeah, sorry about the extra wait, but thanks for joining us tonight. Should be a fun show anyway. It's me and Akato as usual.
Yep, I'm Aikato here with Maris.
Uh,
Or,
s- yeah.
yeah.
So this week we're gonna recap week 3. We have Akato's corner. We're gonna do a meme review of the week, and then we got a preview of week 4. Um, so yeah, we'll just jump right in. Diamond results for week 3. Good game losers took down Landsneck 2-1. Sky Zero got the forfeit win over the Broncos. Uh, Iron 5 2-0'd those thumb guys from Spy Kids. Return to the middle sticks with a 2-0 over Unlucky Retribution and Team Fish Taco. That's actually incorrect. It was a 2-1 over Graceland University. So
2-1. So Graceland ended up taking a game off of TFT, is that right?
yeah, they submitted their post-match form for week 3 literally yesterday. Um,
As you
so
do.
maybe a little bit late on that one. And we haven't seen one of their games on stream, so we're not really certain about what happened in that series, other than, it allegedly happened and existed in TFT1. But congrats to Graceland for taking their first game of the split.
TFT isn't, used to winning series yet, so they haven't gotten the whole submitting the submitting the form down.
So I mean, there's really two big series to focus on, basically. The first one, good game losers, able to take down Landsneck 2-1. And I wanted to highlight the game that was on stream specifically because good game losers kind of broke the mold from where they've traditionally been. We talk a lot about Koala's backpack and getting Yabyenda ahead. Instead, it was Mortally Divine that actually had a game out on Lysandra.
Yeah, and Mortally Divine, as much as it pains me to say it, has had some good games recently, especially on Lissandra, especially on Oriana. And it's really nice to see them step just a little bit away from, Koala 1v9.
Yeah, and for Landsneck, they've had. We'll see. They're coming in with a different roster again for week number 4, so maybe this loss was a point of turmoil for them, and we'll see if it's something that they grow from or something that they kind of shrink from going forward.
For sure. I think it was really interesting that Sneck came into this 2-0, perhaps performing better than we had anticipated. And then being able to take a game off of GGL shows that, it wasn't necessarily a fluke that they were 2-0, that they are a strong team and they are someone that people need to contend with. Coming in with a new roster for next week, or this week, I suppose, it'd be interesting to see if they're able to continue what was a really strong beginning to the season.
Yeah, and you're keeping kind of the core components almost with that new roster, but you have Rito Torchic to build on. You have PB Doughboy, who's had a pretty slick transition into the jungle, honestly.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, PB Doughboy has been, doing pretty well on relatively aggressive picks, and being a good stable point for that team. Although I think a lot of their success the last couple weeks has come through that bot lane with Rito Torchic and Hamana um, in the support position. But as far as I know, Hamana isn't playing support for them. They ended up going with Killer Ring, and then I believe they have a new mid laner. Is that right?
Yeah, they have Yeetloaf coming into the mid lane.
That's correct. Yeetloaf, the Xerath Zoe 2 trick. Um, so we'll see how strong the roster looks from here on out.
But GGL, it's their first game that they've dropped so far this split, but it does set them up with an undefeated matchup that we'll get to preview a little bit later on. And it'll be against the winner of our game of the week from last week. Return of the Middle Sticks took down Unlucky Retribution 2-0. Although you can see that gold graph in game number 2, and that was the one that was on stream. Maybe, not as convincing as maybe you'd hope.
Yeah, the second win wasn't quite as clean as ROTM might have wanted it. In fact, UR was ahead for a long time. They had a lot of control, especially through that bot lane. As is the story of UR, with Tien Sama and Curb Stomp, just playing extremely well down there, getting huge leads, 2v2 and 3v2. Um, it's honestly surprising to me that UR wasn't able to pull that game out. They kind of stalled in the mid game, and RTM found a way to come back, which is still a good look for them. Being able to see that they're able to play from behind. Uh, I think it's kind of ironic and almost reminiscent of semifinals last split, where ROTM and UR played against each other, and UR was ahead by quite a bit. I believe Tien Sama was like 8-0 on Zaya, and the ROTM Vel'Koz was able to bring him back into the game. So it's still, I think that there are good things for both of these teams coming away from this series.
Yeah, just to jump back to that semifinal, it wasn't just the Vel'Koz, it was the Varus E that stole the Baron from from
Yeah,
Unlucky Retribution that really turned the
that's
tide of that
just
series.
the most ridiculous steal. They nuked it from like 1300 to 0 instantly. Oh my god. This game, I don't think that they ended up stealing a Baron. I think they just sort of stalled out, hit their item power spikes, and were able to win fights.
Yeah, we didn't really want to flame Demon Print anymore, but he did build Rylai's on Vel'Koz. That's all I'm gonna. We're gonna leave
Yeah,
it at that.
just an aside here. Rylai's on Vel'Koz makes zero fucking sense. I need you guys to quit building Rylai's. His Q already slows. His ult already slows. His E knocks up, so you don't need a slow. The only thing it affects is his W, and it's AoE, so the slow is so small. Just build a real AP item, please. Sorry, that's my Rylai's rant.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway, our diamond standings after week 3, Return of the Middle Sticks and Good Game Losers. Uh, Alone in first place at 3-0. You've got the quartet of teams vying for the playoff spots: Iron 5, Snick, Unlucky Retribution, and Sky Zero. TFT one game off the pace, sitting in 7th right now, and then Thumb, Graceland, and UCO all looking for their first win this week.
Yeah, and just to continue a narrative that we've talked about previously, Thumb coming in and being 0-3, I don't think that's where we expected them to be after 3 weeks. I think we expected them to be closer to vying for that playoff position. But as far as right now, they're sitting in 8th place, and they have to hope that a few teams above them start dropping some games, and they need to start winning games if they want to have a chance at postseason.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting, especially if you look at the way Diamond is stacking up right now. You need to be top 6 out of 10, right? But that
Hmm.
top 6 out of 10 right now, that cutoff is 2-1. If that continues for the entire split, you're looking at 6-4 to make playoffs. That means that Thumb can only drop one more game. And if I'm not mistaken, they still have Middlesticks and GGL on their schedule.
They do. They do not have an easy schedule. And the top 6 to 7 of Diamond look pretty strong. Like even CFT at 1 and 2 look stronger than their record indicates. If I had to pick a team to beat out of here, it would have to be Snack. I think you have to beat out Snack, and even then, you're still vying for 6th place with, you know, Sky and TFT. It's not an easy road for them at all, getting back into playoffs contention.
Yeah, but they need to start they need to start getting wins in the column. Like right now, if you're looking at 5-5 as not being good enough in order to qualify for playoffs, there's just such a small margin for error right now for Thumb, and we'll have to see if they can step up to that challenge.
You're not wrong. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. As you know, this is a team that in their last split that they played, they won the whole thing, and to come back after taking a split off, it just doesn't seem like they're there right now, and they really need to, have a come to Jesus moment and turn things around before. I don't think that they can lose another week. Otherwise, there go their chances.
Yeah. So we'll jump in. There was no platinum last week, so skipping that into Bilgewater now. Weird Flex, but okay with the 2-1 over Max. UCO 2-0 to AVRM2. Star Gamer 5 with a 2-1 over Sleeper Diamonds. High Octane Gamers took care of Hardstuck Gold 2-0 and Return of the Middle Six 2-0 Ghost.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that most of these went kind of how we expected them to go.
yeah.
Um,
We'll jump. The first game to talk about was Hog taking. They pretty much dismantled Hardstuck Gold. Like this wasn't. We expected Hardstuck Gold to be one of the top teams in Bilgewater, and Hog just stepped up and took him down a peg. Honestly.
I mean, and that's just how good Hog is, right? Yeah, I think that coming into the season, we weren't sure exactly where they would end up landing. But after this win, I think that they're definitely cementing themselves as the top of at least Bilgewater. Because this series honestly wasn't that close. I think we expected, to see a little bit of life in Hardstuck Gold, but they weren't able to do a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting with Hardstuck Gold. They have such a solid core to build on with Shinyu Horu and your two veterans in Drodvir and Mehuli. It seems like Hardstuck Gold should be one of the top teams in Bilgewater, and instead they're floundering a little bit. They're down to 1-2 now.
Agreed. It's not where they want to be, especially in a league where in the top 10 you have to be within the top four to make postseason. And this is a team that Shinyo Horu or Shinyo Shin has showed some really bright spots. Some games where they've gotten a really big lead or perhaps had a really good early game, but it just doesn't seem like they're able to transition that around the rest of the map or you know do enough to be able to pull in that W.
Yeah, and it's hard to remember some of these games, but yeah, they did for game one. They put their AD carry White Mane, I believe, mid lane, and Mehuli was just spectating the game with everybody else. They put him back in for game two, if I remember correctly, and it just wound up being kind of a weird series and a weird game plan from Hardstuck Gold. Maybe just trying to throw some darts and see if something will stick, but you're running out of opportunities to do that.
For sure, especially they're sitting at 1-2 now. You have to be in the top four to advance. You can't drop very many more games from here on out.
Yeah. Our next. Oh, I thought I reversed that. Okay. Yeah. This is Future Star Gamer 5 able to take down Sleeper Diamonds. And this was a game that was super competitive. And Star just able to squeak out the win 2-1 over Sleeper Diamonds. And it sets up honestly both teams are looking really strong, but it sets up Future Star Gamer 5 in that playoff position and Sleeper Diamonds look on the outside looking in after this match.
For sure. Again, like with these gold leagues, you have to be in the top four. So coming out of week three at 2-1, especially with some good wins against Sleeper Diamonds, they did lose the Hog Future Star Gamer setters. They're in a position to vie for those playoff positions. And even if the series itself was pretty close, at the end of the day, the record says that they won. And honestly, that's a huge boon when there are only, this many games played so far.
Yeah. And then our game of the week featured uh, Weird Flex, but okay, taking down Maximum Effort. I'm trying to look which game was on stream. I think it was game one with the Garen, if I remember correctly. Um, Flex kind of did as Flex does, and they moved a bunch of pieces around the map, fumbled with a couple of different things. They had a lead in game number two, but it's weird. Their game plans seem really really different. Their win conditions seem to be just kind of solely outplaying people, and it works a decent percentage of the time because they're good players as a whole. But then you have games like game number two where Revan Christ got pretty fed on that Lux, and I know the truth, able to contribute on the Sivir, and all of a sudden they have a better team comp because they're playing around, some sort of win condition, which in this case seems like you're speeding up a bunch of stuff with Sivir, and you have the Lux for all of the damage.
Agreed, and I think that it speaks even more to Flex just not being able to get a good pin on how good of a team this is. It seems like they're so up and down from game to game, depending on how serious they take the draft, I suppose.
How
Um,
serious they take the draft, how who's playing in the game, like they're they're such a variable team. I think at their very best, they could compete with middle sticks and hog potentially, take a game off of them, take a series even on an off day for one of those teams. On their worst day, they probably lose to Ghost. Like it's all of the other way.
you're not wrong. It makes it really difficult to know which Flex you're gonna see game to game. Um,
But they
that
wouldn't
said,
have it any other way, honestly.
yeah, no, that's very Flex. They're very on brand there. Um, that said, maximum effort. I think coming into this, we expected Revan Christ to be their focal point, because that's what he's been in the past for them. Is this really strong anchor that keeps the team way down so that they can win these games. But this series, not great score lines. The Lux game was definitely strong, but in the other two games, combined 112-2, just not able to be a part of things and get anything going there. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to refocus on Revan Christ or decide that there's another way that they can win games. Because it seems like when he's not getting ahead, they have a lot of trouble transitioning things.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see maximum effort. I don't want to call them like the unlucky retribution of Bilgewater or anything like that, but when you have your focal point on one player and everything's going well, it looks just spectacular. But you have a game when Revan Christ goes 1-8 on brand, and all of a sudden that strategy just really crumbles and it starts to show the flaws immediately.
You're not wrong. When it looks good, it looks really good, and when it looks bad, it looks terrible. When they rely so much on one player. So it'll be interesting from here on out if they're able to develop more strategies or if they're able to, just funnel Revan better.
Yeah. So we'll check in on those Bilgewater standings right now. Return to the middle sticks and high octane gamers. Top two, both undefeated. You've got trio of teams right there, like competing for the last couple of playoff spots with Stargamer 5, Flex, and Max. And then your 1 and 2 teams, Sleeper Diamonds and Hardstuck Gold, are two teams I definitely think we need to keep an eye on. Especially Sleeper Diamonds has the 0 game differential so far, which is super interesting, sitting at 1 and 2. And then Hardstuck Gold, I think, is the team that we think is underperforming. I almost want to call it season over for Ghost and AVRM, but
If you're going into week 4, 0-3, again, landing in the top four, in such a conference where things are so competitive at the top, I think it'd be extremely hard to knock out any of those top 5 or 6 teams. It's honestly extremely difficult to see a way that Ghost or AVRM2 are able to come back and have a postseason.
also just for people in the chat, I'd like just to take a snapshot in your mind of the Bilgewater standings right now. This is a normal distribution of wins and losses, with the two undefeated, the two defeated, and then the other teams like evenly distributed between 2-1 and 1-2. So just take that snapshot, and we'll think back on it, because this actually lines up pretty well with Diamond, but it doesn't line up very well with Shadow Isles, and we'll see that in just a second. But yeah, Shadow Isles results from week number 3. TLM with a 2 over Landsneck. No apologies takes down the Yellow Gackets 2-1. SEAL Team 6 2-0 RKO. Unnecessary Roughness with a 2-1 over Ascended Royalty. And the Oklahomies with the 2-0 over Piltover Pokes. And with Shadow Isles, it's always difficult to just highlight a couple of games because it feels like all 5 games really affect the standings a lot.
For
Um,
sure. Everyone's so clumped up that these wins matter so much more, I think.
yeah,
Um,
I really wanted to highlight Oklahomi's getting off the Schneid against Piltover Pokes, and it throws them into this massive log jam that we'll see here in a second.
did you
Um,
say off the Schneid?
yeah,
What's that?
the Schneid is bad.
Off off the bat?
I don't know. I,
Sorry, I haven't heard that one before. That's
okay.
go
Um,
ahead.
anyway, SEAL Team 6 takes down Team RKO. Also, their first win of the season. I mostly wanted to highlight this one just because I love the SEAL Team 6 logo. But um, this game, the one that was on stream, was super close for about 20 minutes, and then SEAL Team 6 able to break it open. Really good individual performances by Joe Barrow and Heimel in order to finally get SEAL Team 6 rolling.
Yeah, and after watching some of these games, I'm convinced that Yo Barrow's an extremely strong player. And I expect SEAL Team 6 to be able to convert a few more wins down the road, just from the strong performances that he and Heimel have had.
Yeah, and that's the classic combo for SEAL Team 6, able to take it home. And with Paladin on their roster, they should be looking at top half of Shadow Isles. Um, Jobero's meme game definitely on point. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to put up this next graphic. We're going to talk just a little bit first about this. From a podcast perspective, we can't talk about people potentially coming in and boosting or smurfing in the league. We can't positively or negatively say anything about that. Um, however, I am okay, completely okay with holding people accountable for what they're saying in the Discord. So feel free to meme the crap out of that. You have my full approval. If people want to run their mouths, go ahead and let them back it up. But onto the game. Ascended Royalty came out swinging. One game number one, I believe, off of the back of the sub 80 carry, and then Unnecessary Roughness struck back in games 2 and 3, and I think I got 3/4 of the way through this game and fell asleep. I'll be entirely honest. Um, but from what I remember, Ascended Royalty was ahead for most of the game in terms of gold and in terms of oh, we're timing people out for that. Okay, well, that's fair. Unlucky.
Oh
Sorry.
damn, I didn't even
Sorry,
see
Twitch
it.
chat. I'm encouraging the wrong thing. As a podcast perspective, I approve of it. Whether the other admins are going to allow it or not is something else. I apologize. I'm not to blame for this. I can show you who is, but I don't want to make them blamable either. Um, anyway, it was a really close game and series, and eventually Unnecessary Roughness just made the better macro calls in order to take home the victory.
Yeah, amid everything, I think that we can still look at Unnecessary Roughness as having a really strong showing here. They had a little bit of trouble in game one, but game two and three, they came out and, in the end, were able to pull out the wins. So, amidst everything, I still think that we can look at UR as being probably the strongest team, in this half of the Gold Conference.
Yeah, but for Ascended Royalty, able to take the game off of Unnecessary Roughness, they looked all right throughout the series. It's something to build on for them, and in a conference where there's not that defined who is going to make the playoffs at this point, you can look at them really competing.
Yeah, for sure. From here on out, it'll be interesting to uh, track their progress and see if they're able to continue picking up wins off of, difficult opponents.
Yeah. Our game of the week was No Apologies versus the Yellow Jackets. This one was really interesting throughout, honestly. Um, it was game 3 that was on stream. No Apologies didn't have a gold lead the entire game, and they won being down 300 gold while they killed the Nexus.
I mean, sometimes that's just how you do it. Sometimes you have to just, outscale at the point where you end up getting to, 74K gold on each team. The gold leads really don't matter that much. Um, yeah, in the end, no apologies was able to pull out the win in a really close series.
Yeah, and I really wanted to highlight. We talked about him pretty much nonstop last split, but No Mind is basically single-handedly carrying No Apologies through the first part of this season. It'll be interesting to see when they match up against TLM, when they match up against Unnecessary Roughness, if they can continue that same performance. They do have a new top laner as well this week that we'll talk a little bit about later on. But No Apologies right now, sitting at 3-0, but they have a 2-1 game score every single week, and sometimes some teams really come together through having uh, all of those trials, all of that adversity, and then some teams it just eventually starts turning into losses.
They're just getting in as much practice as possible. I heard getting scrims in gold is a little difficult, so it might as well take your the games that people have to play against you. Take it to 3 series. Run those out to 45-minute games, and just get as much practice as possible.
Yeah. So our Shadow Isle standings. Again, if we remember back to the Bilgewater standings in a standard distribution, this ain't it, Chief. TLM right now, the unblemished game score sitting in first with unnecessary roughness and zero apologies, no apologies right behind them. Those are your top three, and then you have six teams all tied at 1 and 2, with Oklahomies having the best game score at 4 and 4, so being listed there. But yeah, and then Piltover Pokes theoretically still not really out of it at 0-3. Granted, you have to leapfrog six other teams in order to get there, but you're only one game back.
Exactly, you're only one game back, and I think if you're any team in this league, I think that you're looking at this as an opportunity to show in the next couple of weeks that you want to get to playoffs. Because with everything being so close, you always have that shot until things start spreading out a little bit. Even if you're one of the teams that has struggled through the beginning, like the Yellow Jackets, there's still a path for them to the playoffs. I think that's really exciting to keep an eye on in the future because every single one of these teams still is able to make it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. If you think about Bilgewater standings from just like a game theory perspective, you're looking at 6-4 or 7-3 as the cutoff for playoffs. If you look
Hmm.
at the way everything's cannibalizing itself in Shadow Isles, you're looking at maybe 4-6 or 5-5 is that cutoff for the fourth spot. So anything's really wide open at this point.
I mean, admittedly, though, at some point these one-win teams do have to play each other, and at that point we'll see a bit more parity, hopefully. Um, or maybe it'll just be a massive fucking tiebreaker. What are the rules for six-way tiebreakers?
They're actually listed now, which is kind of a miracle. I kind of pushed for that in the off season, so you can check the rule book, but I don't know offhand.
Yeah, if you all want to win and lose to each other and force a six-way tiebreaker, it could be an extremely exciting opportunity for everybody.
So yeah, let's check in on our personal predictions. I had a little bit of a rough week there at 10-5. Aikedo extending the lead out had the 12-3 week. Um, and then the viewers chipping in at 11-4. You can see the overall standings with Aikedo at 43-10. Viewers 2 games back, and I'm 3 games back right now.
Yeah, I think the big thing was the viewers falling a game behind for not believing in the Iron Five. I don't know how you guys thought we were going to lose. Deeply offended. But continuing my streak of smurfing and predictions.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. The thing that I know the least about seems to be Bilgewater, which is the division that I'm in, but doing pretty well in Diamond.
It feels like everyone is having trouble with Bilgewater, to be honest. Uh, Definitely, generally speaking, better rankings everywhere else. That said, Diamond, God, I'm 12-3 there. I'm behind everyone else. I feel like that's the league I should know, right?
We'll see how the predictions start to shape up as we go later on, I guess. Um, but yeah, we'll turn the keys over to you for just a minute.
All right, so Aikedo's Corner. I just wanted to talk a little bit. Um, about this season. It was really interesting that there were several supports within the Diamond League who ended up transitioning to other roles. Um, and I just wanted to check in with their progress and how effective they've been. Specifically, the support seemed to not want to stay in bot lane this season. Gavi, the support for UR, ended up transitioning into the jungle. PB Doughboy for Landsneck ended up transitioning from support into the jungle. And then Killer Ring for Sneck has been playing. God, did I mess up one of those? I don't know if I messed up one of those or not. I'll go back over it. But Killer Ring for Schneck ended up transitioning. He's been playing every game for them in the mid lane. I think it's extremely interesting. Gavi and PB Doughboy have transitioning into the jungle. I think that there were a lot of questions regarding how well they would be able to come in and play with a relatively stacked jungle pool in Diamond Capped. And they've actually been doing relatively well, holding their own. And I think even more interesting is their champion pools, because both of them actually have extremely similar champion pools. They're picking up champions like Lee Sin and Gragas, which if you told me the support main was transitioning into jungle and they were going to be maining Lee Sin, I would have laughed at you. But they've shown some okay games on it. Gavi specifically has shown some very high moments as well as some not as high moments. But I think it's really interesting that these support players have been able to transition to other roles and do so well. Especially Killer Ring was able to, in their matchup against GGL this week, solo kill out superstar mid laner Mortally Divine a few times. So I guess it's been figured out once and for all: a support playing mid is better than a mid laner playing supports. But I think it's just something to keep in mind going further down the track is looking at these players and seeing how they're able to perform as supports in other roles, considering supports generally speaking is considered one of the weaker roles. That said, Killering is going back to support next week, so I guess we can't watch that one too far. The other thing that I wanted to talk on real quick, it's not on my slide here, is the positional ranking for Riot. The what they've done with solo queue. This is my tinfoil hat theory. I think at the beginning of season, Riot looked at the ranking system because what they did was they added in Iron and they added in Grandmaster at the very top. I think that they looked at the rank distribution last season and they're like, oh, 80% of our player base is below gold, but people want to hit gold. So they wanted to even out their distribution more. That way, Diamond isn't the top 1% and 80% of the community isn't below gold. So I think that Riot added in these two extra divisions and then inflated everyone's MMR at the beginning of the season. That way you could climb with negative win rates and fill up the upper echelons of these ranks. So that means a lot more players in Diamond, a lot more players in Master Tier, and being able to fill out this Grandmaster. That way they can have a more even distribution of players. That said, what happened was a lot of Platinum or D4 players immediately shot up into Master Tier at the beginning of the season, and Riot didn't expect that. It pissed everyone off, and no one wanted to play ranked anymore. All their high-low streamers are pissed off and crying for a ranked reset. I don't think that ranked reset would be helpful. I think that people should just sit back and wait a couple months for it to sort itself out. That said, what Riot's response was to clip everybody's MMR and shove that way back down, which is just going to create the same issue in the same rank distribution that I think they wanted to avoid this season. So I feel like this isn't the last we've seen of inflated MMRs to try and fill out the top end of the league ranking. That's what I think happened this offseason. Tinfoil hat off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's first the like supports moving to other roles. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's
support.
literally the basis of Weird Flex, but okay. And we'll see how that experiment in gold goes.
Supports are actually OP. I think every team should just have 5 supports.
Um, and then I think it's interesting if you consider what's happening at the bottom end as well. I don't think it's as well like
Documented.
televised, documented, because most of the people who are in bronze and iron don't care,
I
aren't huge pillars of the community. But I think it's interesting. It doesn't seem like there's that clamping going down the other way, where a lot of bronze players are being forced into iron.
I think that well, nobody wants to admit that they're iron or bronze on Reddit, so you see a lot less of the complaining. Other than that, though, I think that Riot wants people inflated up, as opposed to being inflated down. I don't know why they added iron. It seems really strange, that they did. I don't know if anyone was like, "Oh yeah, I played 2 seasons in bronze, and then Riot moved me down to iron." I don't think anyone's particularly happy with that move. That said, I'm not even sure that iron exists. There are literally 0 people on my friends list who are in iron. I've literally never seen an iron player. I don't think it actually
So I
exists.
actually found one on my friends list the
Oh
other
my
day.
god.
They're iron one, so I don't know if there's anybody below that, but at least there's at least one person in iron one.
I think iron is like Australia. It doesn't actually exist.
Anyway, we're gonna jump in. We've got a meme review. Basically, I picked a couple of my favorite memes that got posted this week.
Just for context on a few of these, we had our podcast a week back from last Monday. We did a bit early in the week because Maris was working on our normal time. And that night, the Diamond Chat and the General Chat exploded with memes. This was a week and a half ago, so people might have forgotten about it. I just want to give a little bit of context to what most of these are referring to.
Yeah. So we're just gonna go for the first two here because they're very related, but I thought that they were both decently done. And I don't want to pick a huge amount on Mortally Divine because he gets his shots back later. Um, but I at least know that he can kind of take some of the brunt of it. But I thought that these memes were pretty good. They're very well made in terms of some of these other memes. Um,
I'm a huge fan of the SpongeBob memes. Very relatable. And just to speak on it, Mortally Divine is the brunt of a lot of jokes that I make and the brunt of a lot of memes within the Discord. I just want to say that I appreciate how much of a good sport he is around it for the most part. And he shoots back. If at any point I thought that he didn't, have some fun in it as well, I would absolutely quit. But I just wanted to get that out there since he is the brunt of most of the jokes that go
and I
on.
see the thing, unfortunately, given the targeted nature of a lot of the memes that happened in the gold chat, I we're kind of not going to cover them because they were targeted at people who really didn't appreciate the memes. I think Mortally Divine at least doesn't mind being the brunt of these. If that's wrong and Mortally Divine messages me after this telling me that I'm just out here flaming him, then you know won't do that. But
Yeah.
anyway, I really
Anyway,
liked
the
this.
meme.
I really like this one. Silverhammer made this one. Um, Literally a direct quote from Mikado, ranking the mid laners in GRLCS.
Yeah. uh, just off the top of my head, there's definitely a few mid laners who I would probably put above Morley Divine.
Um,
Maybe.
yeah, this was a really solid one where we're self aware. We can roast Mortally Divine all we want, but you still lose to GGL in the end.
Yeah, I think everyone's losing to GGL as it is, so we
And
still
yeah,
got to get our memes in.
Silverhammer, I believe, made two of these. One of them was fourth shot. It's a group effort. This one was from Vid, I believe, posted this one.
I think that's a quality one right there.
Yeah, we gotta get the shout outs for the gold in here. Um, yeah, and then of course the original Mortally Divine getting into Koala's backpack. You can see how happy he is, how snug he is back in the backpack.
Yeah, no, they're having a great time together there.
And my absolute favorite one, courtesy of Mortally Divine himself, was Fourth Shot giving his winnings over to the state of Kansas Police Department. Which, if you didn't know, the man, we went to LAN last split. They all rode in Fourth Shot's van. For some reason, he has a van. They wrote "Good Game Losers" on the back window of it. Drove up. All of the Middle Sticks boys unloaded out of Fourth Shot's minivan, and then K State won it. Unfortunately, then Fourth Shot on the way home, speeding in his minivan, gets pulled over and has to pay a speeding ticket back to the Kansas State Police Department.
Was it even on the way? I think it was on the way down, wasn't it?
No, it was the way home.
Oh, okay.
They're
Still,
headed back to Manhattan, and he gets pulled over.
these are the quality memes that the Discord exists for.
So your serious content there. Um, yeah, our diamond schedule for week 4: Landsneck versus Unlucky Retribution, Iron 5 versus Graceland, Team Fish Taco takes on Sky Zero, Good Game Losers versus Return of the Middle Sticks, and the Broncos play against those thumb guys from Spy Kids.
Yeah, and there are a few we want to talk about in here, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the first one is our playoff bubble matchup, basically with Sky Zero and Team Fish Taco.
And this is a really interesting matchup because, in my mind, I think that TFT has been showing that they're an extremely strong team, able to contend with the upper parts of this league. Especially with performances out of Puffles, Mia, Hyberdoodles, and even Azuki playing extremely well. I think Puffles Mia is probably one of the stronger mid laners in the league currently. Versus Sky, who they're 2-1. I don't think that they've looked particularly strong in any of their wins. That said, this is also a team that relies a lot on the upper half of the map. This is historically a very dude perfect and almighty centric team. It'll be interesting to see how they match up uh, because these are two teams that are very directly colliding with each other and trying to get playoffs.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really interesting matchup. I again, it'll be interesting specifically because I think both teams really want to use their solo lanes. For Sky Zero, it's more specifically mid lane and less about top, but both teams really trying to leverage the solo lanes and that sort of top half of the map, and whichever team comes out ahead in that 2v2 or 3v3 is going to get a lot of map control out of that one.
Yeah, and I would expect the winner of this to really, have a shoe in for that fifth or sixth place spot, getting into playoffs. I think this is a really pivotal match, actually.
Yeah, and as Silverhammer's pointing out, they're 1-1. They had the forfeit win last week over UCO, so it's been a week since we've seen Sky Zero play, and we'll see if they've come up with some new strategies or uh, in how they can really handle Team Fish Taco, who seems more like a team on the rise. They won last week. They're taking games off of some of the top teams. It seems like Team Fish Taco's kind of getting it together here down the stretch. Not down the stretch, I guess, as we get toward the middle of the season.
For sure, the viewers seem to side with Sky Zero here. I believe I ended up going with Team Fish Taco. I just really feel like they're gonna see a performance out of Puffles Mia that's, gonna show that they're a team to contend with and a team that should be in playoffs.
Yeah, viewers going to go on the side of Sky Zero, and honestly, that's not as close as maybe I think this bout should be. But 76% of you went for Sky Zero. Our next game, another seeding battle. These two teams very firmly in the playoff hunt right now. Both 2-1 coming in, but Landsneck and Unlucky Retribution going to battle it out on the Rift this week. And Landsneck, as we mentioned, the re-debut of King Yeetloaf in the mid lane, brings a little bit different look from what they've been running so far this split.
For sure, it'll be really interesting to see if this dual lane of Rito Torchic and Killer Ring are able to perform, as well as the dual lane of Rito Torchic and Hamana had in weeks past. Um, that said, again, I think Sneck is a team that's kind of on the downswing. I don't think that they're quite as good as their record indicates. And UR is still an extremely strong team. Perhaps not as strong as they were last split, but I'd be surprised if they didn't end up taking this one.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. King Eatloaf comes in. He had a really strong last split playing jungle for Unlucky Retribution. Now finds himself back in his main role of mid on Landsneck, and he's got an opportunity in, I don't want to say a weaker mid laner pool, but it is relatively exploitable. And Yeetloaf coming in, if he's on form, could look to be one of the top couple of mid laners in the league.
Were you saying that Yeatloaf's pool is exploitable?
No, the mid lane pool in general in
Oh,
Diamond Capped.
sure. For sure. I think the mid lane pool in general isn't super strong, so Yeatloaf does have the option of coming in and showing that he is among the best here. That said, this matchup, I think DC Decay is probably one of the stronger mid laners in the league. I think that he has games where he just pops off like crazy. It'll definitely be a good matchup, and if Yeatloaf is able to show himself as being better than DC Decay, that could be a really big statement when coming back into here.
Yeah, and then TN versus Rito Torchic should be a really good bot lane matchup. Honestly, kind of a matchup across the board that stacks up really well against itself. I'm excited. Chat goes with Unlucky Retribution, basically 2-1. So a lot of favor going for Unlucky Retribution.
Yeah, and I think that's probably how we expect that one to go down.
Our game of the week is going to be our undefeated matchup because there's really no other way to pick one. Honestly, if you've got the two undefeated teams playing against each other, but good game losers taking on Return of the Middle Six, the old-fashioned LKC clash.
Yeah, and this is the rematch of the finals of Split. Last Split. These are two teams that are, I think, very obviously in the top two positions within this league. It'll be really interesting because this is again extremely likely to be a match that's redone down the road in playoffs. And this kind of locks you into that first place seed. Coming out of week 4, 4-0, you have to be feeling extremely good about yourself. Whichever team's able to do.
Yeah, and it'll be again really. I always love watching these two teams play, and it maybe as kind of the legacy League KC caster, I have even more of a soft spot for these guys. But um, I love watching them play and square up, and they match up super well pretty much across the board. Maybe a little bit favored in the solo lanes for Return of the Middle Sticks, but Yabienda, Lord Care Bear, and Koala should have the advantage for K State. Good
Yeah,
game
I think that
losers, as
the
it were.
the big matchup here to highlight is Tendies 2 and UKP X Koala. I think these are two the best junglers in the league, and these are two teams that play with their junglers being a huge part of their success. So it'll be really interesting to see who's able to transition that success, into a strong game here. Because I think that a lot of this matchup will be decided by that matchup, as well as the one in the mid lane with Mortally Divine and Demon Print, two of the stronger mid laners within the league. Um, no, I think this will be an extremely good game for sure.
Yeah. Um, Chat voted literally one vote in favor of Return of the Middle Sticks, so should be a really hype matchup for Diamond Capped. I'm looking forward to it. Our predictions across the board. The only one we are flipped on is GGL versus Return of the Middle Sticks. Oh, we were
Yeah,
also flipped on TFT and Sky.
yeah,
Um,
I took TFT over Sky again. I think they'll be off the back of Puffles Mia, but I also took ROTM against GGL. Um, I don't know. I feel like ROTM kind of looks like the more cohesive team. Um,
yeah,
no, but either way, I think it's gonna be a great series.
again, as the legacy LKC caster, GGL always seems to have Middle Sticks number. I don't know that there's been a series where Middle Sticks is. It's always 2-1. It's always super close, but GGL always seems to take it over Return of the Middle Sticks.
Yeah,
Our viewer predictions for the last two games, no surprises here. 90% and 86% in favor of the teams that you would think they're in favor for.
yeah, it'll be interesting. The Broncos and the Thumb guys, coming out of week 3, 0-3, whichever team ends up coming out of that with a win, I think they'll be feeling good about themselves and hoping to repeat that down the road.
Yeah. Our platinum we just need to check in really briefly on Platinum here so that we have some context for what we're about to say. But Platinum standings, if we remember back to week 2, Shme, Sensei Squad, Meat Beats all at 2-0, OGR and Team Name here at 1-1, and then iTown, GSM, and Kings of Baron all 0-2, languishing down at the bottom of the standings. So our schedule for this week: Team Name here takes on Oklahoma Gold Rush. Meat Beats take on iTown. Gecko Slammer Armageddon versus the Sadistic Causers of Havoc, Mayhem, and Evil, which is the longest name matchup in OKLCS. And then Kings of Baron versus the Sensei Squad.
Yeah, and honestly, a few pretty good matchups here. I'm not sure which ones we picked out.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The Platinum schedule kind of is going to potentially cause just this huge wedge in it. This is the 1-1 versus the 1-1 team, which we're going to have as our game of the week. And then the other matchups are all undefeated teams versus teams that haven't won yet. So we could potentially see 3 teams tied at 3-0 at the end of the week, and 3 teams at the bottom of it would at 0-3, unless we see that upset happen.
Yeah, if there's some upsets, then everyone's just tied in the middle.
So our important match to feature is going to be Sensei Squad versus Kings of Baron. Um, Honestly, picked this one kind of, I don't want to say randomly, but because we haven't featured Kings of Baron yet. And they're also bringing in a new jungler in Mowgli, who should give Kings of Baron a little bit different look and potentially a little bit more staying power in Platinum.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting because Sensei Squad is a team that's coming in, on the top. They're 2-0, and they've looked pretty good in their wins. Whereas Kings of Baron haven't looked as good, but with this new injection of Mowgli's a jungler who's played in Diamond Cap previously. Previously he's been a very carry-oriented jungler who's, he likes being that 1v9 player. So it'll be interesting if, coming down into the Platinum Cap, if he's able to transition that and make a positive adjustment for a team that really needs it. Um, in a conference, in a I
Division.
can't think of the word. In a division, thank you. In a division that could end up being extremely close, you want to pick up as many wins early as you can and show that you can beat these top teams.
Yeah, and it's the shorter split for Platinum with only 8 teams, so you only have 7 games really to prove yourself. Granted, 4 of the 8 make playoffs, so it's not
Mm,
as tight as it would be in gold, but you still need to finish top half. And right now, all of those 0-3 teams have a little bit, or all those 0-2 teams, excuse me, have some work to do.
for sure, for sure.
And then our match of the week is going to be the 2 1-1 teams right now. OGR has the 1 game advantage and sitting in the playoff spot. Also coming in with a new AD carry in Whitest. Meanwhile, Team Name here making a roster change themselves. They flip Karasuda from support to AD carry and bring in a new support named Ignorance's Blizz, um, who has a decent solo queue ranking, like Platinum 3 looks pretty solid. And if you can bring in another threat with Reptar, Team Name here could really make a run at the top of the standings.
Agreed. I think this will be a really close game. These are two teams that are relatively evenly matched. It'll be interesting to see whose sub or roster change ends up being more helpful to the team. But either way, I could see us going either way. I think these are both a couple of pretty strong teams.
Oh, Carrot isn't our jungle, Melon is our jungle. Okay, well, you guys should probably fill out the roster change form because this is what's listed right now. Cough. But if that's the case, still kind of the same shuffle going on. If you can find another carry threat to double with Reptar, team name here looks a lot stronger. Meanwhile, OGR looks like a more complete team overall, but we'll have to see. Again, we have a smaller sample size on these platinum teams.
Whitest, is that somebody?
Whitest
Is
equals
that a name change?
Padova 02. I don't know if that
Oh wait,
means
Padova
anything.
also played in Diamond Capped as an ADC. He was one of the stronger ADCs a couple splits back. So wait, OGR is actually just smurfing. What the hell?
Yeah, and I know it's Trotalor, not Trogalor. If I make one mistake, that's pretty good, honestly. Apologies to Trotalor.
Yeah, you're allowed one.
Um, but yeah, it should be a really interesting matchup. The I think I say that about everything. I need to to find a new phrase to say once in a while. But 61% of the viewers in favor of team name here over Oklahoma Gold Rush, which I think is super interesting, honestly.
For sure. I think this will be a really close series.
Yeah, I think that actually OGR should be the favored team if you just look at rankings, but we'll see how it all plays out on the Rift. Our predictions, we both actually have OGR over team name here. I actually flipped the. Oh my god. Okay, I flipped. We both have meat beats over iTown. Don't worry, we didn't mess that one up. I'm sorry.
Oh God. Yeah, no, I want my meat beats.
However, however, you did unironically pick GSM over Schmet.
Oh my God. So GSM has burnt me 2 weeks in a row. This is a team that I expect such great things out of. There are people on this team that I played with in the past or that I feel like are really good. If they lose this week against Shma, I might have to just cut it off, and quit rooting for them. Um, I don't know. Just have to hope that they're able to pull it out.
Yeah, viewer predictions on those last two games, 90 to 10 in favor of Meat Beats over iTown. Um, and then 80% backing me up with Schme over GSM.
Yeah, I'll be the lone supporter of GSM left.
Yeah, we'll jump into Bilgewater's schedule for week 4. Sleeper Diamonds take on Weird Flex, but okay. Hog plays AVRM2 in a game that we don't really need to talk about. Maximum Effort take on Return of the Middle Sticks. UCO Broncos versus Ghost in a game that somebody has to win. And then Stargamer 5 versus Hardstuck Gold.
I'm not going to disagree with that characterization, but humorous either way.
Yeah, the game to talk about before the games to talk about, Stargamer 5 versus Hardstuck Gold. Really important game for the standings. Stargamer 5 coming in on a 2-game win streak, Hardstuck Gold coming in on a 2-game loss streak. If trends continue, you pretty much look at Hardstuck Gold as being de facto eliminated after this week.
Yeah, it's definitely a must win. Again, in these gold ones, you have to win the games that you get the chance at winning. You can't drop any freebies. So if they want to, be able to contest for playoffs, it's pretty much a must win.
And then Sleeper Diamonds take on Weird Flex, but okay, I believe that game's tonight, might be playing right now. But I did want to touch on just a little bit of history between these two teams. Sleeper Diamonds is effectively OU Gold. Oh, I'm cutting off Charging Badger OP's name. Apologies, Charging Badger. So anyway, Sleeper Diamonds is effectively OU Gold, just playing under that different name because they didn't get the OU approval. Meanwhile, Flex contains 4 people who go to OU and didn't want to play on the Gold team, hence some of the name changes that have happened this week. But there's a little bit of history here between those two teams, and it'll be cool to see how they play it out on the Rift, and if there's maybe just a little bit of a grudge for both teams.
Yeah, we'll see if maybe Flex is able to take this one a bit more serious if they have something on the line. Or maybe they'll just A-ram it. I don't know. I can't tell with Flex.
Yeah, and also there's literally, I believe, 3 or 4 more people on their roster that I didn't list on here. This was kind of the best guess at a starting roster for them. Um, but they seem to just want to pick up a lot of players that get discarded by other teams, and I appreciate them for that.
For sure.
But yeah, our match of the week is going to be Return of the Middle Sticks versus Maximum Effort. Teams at the top of the standings right now, and the chat really favors Return of the Middle Sticks for some reason.
Uh, I couldn't imagine why. That said, for maximum effort, they've showed that they can definitely win through Revan Christ. So maybe they're able to create a lead there. But they are into one of the stronger mid laners in the league and Wing Nation, and into probably the best team in their conference, ROTM. If they're able to take games off of them, I think it would be a huge statement for maximum effort going down the line. That said, I think that graph is probably a relatively accurate representation of how we expect this to go.
Yeah, I do think it'll be interesting to see how how Max is able to play, if they're able to make that statement that, hey, we're a playoff team, we're ready to make some noise in this conference, and if they can stand up to the challenge offered by Return of the Middle Sticks.
for sure. It'll definitely be a a matchup to watch, especially if there is a um the an upset. If there's an
Yeah.
upset, I think it would be huge for the league.
So predictions, I believe that we flip on. I actually have Hardstuck Gold. I'm believing in the old boys, and you've got Stargamer 5.
Yeah. I feel like G5 looked good in their last week. It'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
Yeah, I think at some point my belief in Hardstuck Gold's going to come back to bite me, and it's probably this week. But um, I I still don't quite understand how a team with Mehuli and Shinyohoru and Drodvir is struggling so much. So maybe a little bit too much belief in last season's results compared to what I'm actually seeing with my eyes. But um, we'll uh, we'll pick him again this week, and then probably never pick him again.
They're your GSM basically.
Our viewer predictions here: 95% for Hog over AVRM. Uh, UCO actually getting the vote over Ghost this week. And then Stargamer 5, 64% over Hardstuck Gold, which is kind of interesting.
For sure. That's a Hog of course has the hearts of the viewers. I don't think anyone's too surprised to see that they're favored in that one.
Yeah, Shadow Isle scheduled this week. Landsneck take on Yellow Jackets. Tastes Like Armageddon versus RKO. No Apologies versus Ascended Royalty. Piltover Pokes versus SEAL Team 6. And Unnecessary Roughness versus Oklahomies. Um, I wanted to highlight Piltover Pokes versus SEAL Team 6 very briefly, just because it's the Bedlam matchup. You have OSU versus another OU team, basically. I guess they're the old OU team. I don't know if they're no longer affiliated with OU or even at OU anymore. There's just too many OU guys, honestly.
Way too many. Gotta. They need to rebrand themselves.
But the important match, the only matchup of 1 and 2 versus 1 and 2 is Landsneck versus Yellow Jackets. We seem to have to talk about Yellow Jackets every week, but I think it's because they've had the most difficult schedule to this point, and they're still in the playoff hunt despite being 1 and 2. They got a 1 vote lead over Landsneck this week. Uh,
Ooh, which is kind of surprising. I think coming in, we didn't really expect too much out of Snec. Whereas based off of solo queue ranks and some of these players, I think we expected Yellow Jackets to be a pretty strong team. That said, they're coming into the week at the same overall record. Snec overperforming a bit and Yellow Jackets maybe underperforming a bit. It'll be really interesting coming out of this. I think whichever team does end up winning this, maybe on a path for playoffs. They kind of cement themselves as being in a good position.
yeah, and it'll be cool to see Yellow Jackets specifically. When they've won, it's been through their bottom lane. January's had a couple of really good games on Vayne and on I want to say it was Jinx was the other game that he really popped off on.
That
But it
sounds right.
seems like that bottom half of the map with January and Drail really strong for Yellow Jackets. Meanwhile, for Landsneck, when they win, it seems to be more through like White Shadow and Iron Man fan having really strong individual solo lanes. So if they can stand up to Video Gamer 69 and Zekroff, I think is how everybody's chosen to pronounce it. But um, we'll see how those solo lanes match up well for Landsneck.
Yeah. Again, I think this will be a really close matchup and really important down the line.
Yeah. And then our game of the week is going to be No Apologies versus Ascended Royalty. This was the closest matchup I think between the 3-0 and 1 and 2 teams. Um, no Apologies comes in. They have a new top laner in Ooga Booga Booga. I feel very manly saying. um, but again, it'll give them a different look, and we'll see how much they can funnel into No Mind for No Apologies. And for Ascended Royalty, coming off of taking a game off of unnecessary roughness. Now they have a new challenge. They brought in a new AD carry and GRLCS who has been spamming the Discord server looking for a team. Um, and we'll see what he can bring to Ascended Royalty.
It'll be really interesting. Ascended Royalty, they are coming off of, winning a game against UR. They have a new look. They showed a new look last week, and they have a new look this week. It'll be interesting to see if No Apologies is able to continue their 3-0 streak. Again, they're 6-3 in game score, right? So they've taken every single series to 3 games. This could be an upset. This could be the time that No Apologies isn't able to eke it out at the end. It would definitely be interesting for standings if that's the case.
Yeah, and our predictions for Shadow Isles, I think that we're pretty even. I think we even agree with the viewers across the board. Just double triple check. Yeah, looks like everybody is in agreement. The closest one is SEAL Team 6 with the 75% over Piltover Pokes, but a lot of belief right now in TLM and unnecessary roughness, and I think that those two teams are solidly the top two. And if No Apologies can survive against Ascended Royalty this week, we really have to consider them the top three, and then the rest of this is just going to be that scrap for fourth.
For sure. And there are a lot of teams vying for it. This will be an extremely interesting division to look at. Come next week after the smoke has cleared a little bit.
Yeah. Um, I believe, yeah, that's it. I want to touch on a couple of things while we finish. First off, is thanks for putting up with me this week. I haven't had as much time to devote into all of this as the chat has been pointing out every little mistake that I've made and things that I've been saying, which I both appreciate and hate you for. But we'll do better next week as I start to get accustomed to this schedule and actually be able to budget my time well. Um, but yeah, we'll definitely do better this next week. Right now, if you guys aren't doing anything, the stream, and I'm gonna go ahead and host it afterwards, but go ahead and check out K-State Esports Club. It's twitch.tv/esports club KSU. Our boys, Maximus, uh, Demon Print, Algu, Vibon, and UKPX Koala are playing on KSU's team against Case Western for $7,000. And I know they'd all really appreciate your support. Um, Also worth noting is this week, Akedo and I will be casting Diamond Capped at 4 p.m. on Sunday. You guys won't want to miss what is sure to be some good memes from that.
Yeah, you guys aren't rid of us just yet. Make sure to tune in for that, and definitely go support our K State guys. I think they'd really appreciate it.
Yeah. So that said, thanks guys for watching this week. We'll go ahead um, and host KSU, but hopefully you guys enjoy that and best of luck to our boys playing over there for their scholarship.
For sure. And thanks for tuning in, guys.
It's Esports Club KSU. Just double check. Esports Club KSU.